I'm Alexandra Nichols, and welcome to my TED Talk. The biggest mistake we make in life is to treat everyone equally when it comes to learning. This was said by Dr. Mel Levine, and I believe these words ring quite true. Gifted is a term I'm sure most people are familiar with, though of course the exact definition may differ from person to person. However, giftedness is typically defined as a label for high levels of intelligence, which in theory shows accelerated developments of functions in the brain. The perception of intelligence that has to do with giftedness in particular has expanded from strictly analytical and rational thinking to a more open concept that encompasses all of the areas of brain function such as physical sensing, emotions, cognition, and intuition. This affects how gifted individuals view the world as they take in and store information in a different way than others. Gifted people also experience heightened sensory sensitivity, which is when a person takes special notice of the sensory stimuli around them, such as sound or smell. It is well known that there are neurological differences in those who are considered gifted and those who do not fit under this label. Prior studies have shown that gifted individuals have increased bilateral brain activation, which essentially means that both sides of the brain are being activated, and in addition, gifted people experience more pronounced brain activation when presented with challenges than those not considered gifted. Furthermore, there are greater brain volumes, as seen in this very accurate diagram, that increase white matter in gifted individuals. White matter affects learning and other brain functions, which means an increase in this, which changes the way in which an individual learns and functions. However, the traits that I just explained, such as processing differences in sensory sensitivity, also relate to neurodivergent individuals, which are essentially individuals whose brains are wired differently, which leads to my main point. Gifted children are significantly more likely to be diagnosed with neurodiversity, with diagnoses such as ADHD, dyslexia, processing disorders, autism, as well as physical and emotional disorders than their peers. These children are neurologically placed within a subset of both neurodiverse people and those who are labeled gifted, and are known as twice exceptional or 2E, which you can see in this Venn diagram. Twice exceptional students typically are highly knowledgeable and talented in at least one particular domain, like gifted students. However, they can also display characteristics of neurodivergence, such as asynchronous intellectual development, which is different levels of success across different subjects. There can be many issues associated with incorrect placement of these twice exceptional people due to the nature and overlap of the two labels. This incorrect placement can either include categorizing an individual as solely gifted or as solely neurodivergent. One issue that can be present in neurodiverse behavioral symptoms is that they can be missed as they're seen as just gifted characteristics. Behaviors that are applicable to this is an inability to focus, as many scientists and doctors will simply disregard this, claiming it is due to a higher intelligence and therefore less necessity or desire for paying attention. And while this is true in some cases, it can be very untrue in other cases, such as those with ADHD. Another example of a behavior that can overlook neurodivergence is being an introvert or antisocial. This is frequently written off as gifted children being so above their peers academically that they struggle to connect with them. However, this is also a behavior that contributes to the diagnosis of autism. In addition to behavioral traits that create overlap between gifted and neurodiverse students, there are noticeable neurological similarities that can be found in the brain's function stimulated by certain situations. For example, when taking in new information, the cerebrum is at work. However, both gifted and neurodiverse students, such as those with autism, show enlarged cerebrums, which means that the brain processes differently than those with the typical cerebrum size. In addition, when repetition is used to learn or memorize, the brain increases the amount of myelin around its neurons, which assists in learning and processing by adjusting the speed of information transmission through the neural networks of the brain. Yet gifted brains have naturally stronger melanation, which means they require less repetition in order to learn and memorize. This is also true in those with ADHD, in which their melanation can be dysregulated, which means that they also have less need for repetition. Both of these instances show that there can be strong similarities on a neurological level in gifted and neurodiverse individuals. Another issue that can be faced in this tangle of traits, you could say, is that some 2E students struggle without the knowledge of the neurodiversity that they have when perhaps they believe that they were only gifted, which can create a barrier to their learning. Twice exceptional students frequently have difficulty in the school environment, specifically where organization, participation, and long-term planning are concerned. While these students can be highly creative, verbal, imaginative, curious, and with strong problem-solving ability, they can also struggle to keep up with the course rigor, volume, and demands of their school career. This can ultimately result in an inconsistent academic performance, frustration, difficulties within written expression, and eventually labels such as lazy, motivated, underachiever. All of these may create a situation in which the 2E students loses their self-efficacy, self-confidence, and motivation. There is an undeniable necessity for accommodation in the highly neurodiverse and gifted society that exists today. Without these accommodations, there can be consequences such as inefficient communities that are prone to inefficient work due to interruptions such as sensory overload, as well as the loss of important input of neurodiverse people that can otherwise not be translated properly. However, with these accommodations met, there is no limit to the progression that can be achieved throughout all fields of innovation and creation in the world. The biggest mistake we make in life is to treat everyone equally when it comes to learning. So I believe that we as a society should strive to provide modifications to the education system, specifically with neurodiverse and gifted students in mind, as well as the overlap, because all growth, abilities, and identity root from the education one receives, and these prospects will continue into their adult life. Accommodation starts with individuals, so I implore you to let it all begin with you. Help those who are struggling and notice trends in those around you. As Snap once said, I got the power, and so do you. Thank you.
Sheesh!